You're listening to the Nerdy by Nature podcast on the Pod Bros Network. LetUsGetNerdy.com is your source for behind-the-scenes content, including videos, pictures, links, and show notes. Stop by for a free self-guided tour. Clothes are optional. Chris, the Beer King, is here. Rob, the encyclopedic, he is here too. Can't forget the man with the magic touch. Nathan, the sound man, is here to help us sound oh so sweet. I'm Elijah, and I like my own Facebook posts. Rob finally had a chance to test drive his Tesla in Toronto, and he lived to tell us about it. So, Rob, is a Tesla everything you thought it would be?
And more, Elijah, and
Really?
more.
Ooh.
The entire experience was just phenomenal right from the word go. Had to be down in Toronto for a different event, and
Right.
while there, I took the opportunity to book a test drive for a Model S. The appointment was for noon. I got there a little bit early.
10?
No, not quite that early. Got there about 20 to 12.
I'd be excited.
And went in, and one of the sales advisors, ownership advisors, whatever they call themselves, he introduced himself, and I said that I was there for a test drive, and he's like, well, he's just on lunch right now. You're the guy who's going to be taking you around for a test drive, so take a look around the S and the X, sit in, play around with the stuff. So I did that, checked out the Model S they had in the showroom and the Model X SUV. The Falcon Wing doors on the SUV, they're very, very interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, very cool. Push button to close it, push button to open it. You can also open and close them from the touch screen in the front.
Saw some YouTuber had them, and they're just...
Apparently, there's a little bit of an issue with that and the liftgate on the back, opening them in a garage. You have to make sure you have the room.
Oh, it doesn't try and... I know some of the side doors at least try to detect where there's a wall, but the liftgate doesn't do that?
Well, with the liftgate, what you do is you actually set your height. So you open it the first time and you set your height.
Okay.
And then it will remember it from then on. I guess if you don't remember to set your height, well, then you get to replace your liftgate as it crashes into your ceiling.
That's a hard lesson.
Yeah, so it would be a hard, expensive lesson, but, it is what it is.
Sure.
So noon rolls around, and my test drive guy, Kelvin, comes out, introduces himself, and scans in my driver's license, and off we go on the test drive. First thing he shows me is the little key fob for it, and the key fob itself is actually a little model silhouette type mass that looks like a Model S Tesla. Yeah, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Hopping in the car, there's no start button. Like some cars nowadays, you hop in, you keyless, push your button to start, like my Mazda. You don't even have that in a Tesla.
So how does it start?
You just put your foot on the brake.
Really?
And that starts the car.
So it knows based on the key fob that you're in there and you're good to go.
Exactly.
Forget the middleman, the start button.
Exactly.
Just go time.
Exactly.
Cool.
So we pull out of the dealership, and he's got a route in mind that he takes us on. And the first thing that it's quiet. There's no engine noise, of course.
It's got to be so weird.
There's also very little road noise.
Really?
It's so well insulated.
Even though it's so quiet. Because you'd probably pick that up, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Even tire noise is almost non-existent. It's just so well insulated. So as we're approaching a stoplight, he tells me to turn right. So, like normal, you take your foot off the gas to get ready to brake.
Sure.
You slow right down. You don't even, you'll take your foot off, maybe start to coast towards a stop sign 200-300 feet back. With the Tesla, you just start to stop right now because of the regenerative braking.
So there's some more force with the brakes?
Much more. Really, he said they refer to it as one-pedal driving. Because really the only time you ever need to touch the brake is if you need to come to a complete stop. And even then, you'll really only use the brake from about 7 kilometers an hour down to 0.
Really?
Yeah. Like if you're taking a corner on a green light or whatever, you don't touch the brake at all.
Another savings. Never touch the brakes.
Big time. Your brakes will last forever. And as you're braking, using the regenerative braking, it's putting a little bit more charge back into that battery.
Do you have any idea how much? Just rough?
I don't.
Just a little bit or a lot?
Little bit, probably.
Yeah.
But every little bit helps.
Of course.
And so then we go through this route, and he takes me down this dead-end street, and it's got a 3-way stop sign, and he's like, okay, at this stop sign, come to a complete stop, then hit it hard. So I did. Now, I was driving the P75, and it was the D, so it did have all-wheel drive in it. But it did not have, it wasn't the P90, so it didn't have the super fast acceleration, and it definitely did not have the ludicrous mode. The book spec for this, for the one I was driving, says 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 5.8 seconds.
Decent? No.
Yeah, it's fast, and I punched it, and I hit it, and I was up to 60 kilometers an hour almost instantly.
Right to the floor?
Yeah, like you just hit go.
Is there any delay with the pedal?
No.
Like drive-by-wire, that sort of technology?
It's instantaneous.
Really?
Yeah, you hit it and you go.
Any wheel spin?
You could get wheel spin, I'm sure, but there is actually software designed to prevent that.
Okay.
There are ways to somewhat override it, apparently, but under normal operation, you shouldn't get that. So this dead end street he takes me on has a cul-de-sac at the end. And he's like, all right, slow down a little bit and then just take a tight turn. And a tight turn is exactly what you end up taking. And he was explaining, because there's no engine in the front, they can actually have the front wheels turn more than a regular car. Now, they don't exactly, it's not like they turn 90 degrees, but where a regular car might maybe go as far as 40 degrees or something, the Tesla wheels might hit 50. I don't know. I'm making numbers up here, but there's an increased turning, which decreases the turning radius.
There's that much more room without the engine.
Yeah. So though it's obviously not a zero turning radius, but it's pretty close. I would be very surprised if the back wheel, when I was turning, moved very much like the inside back wheel. It was a very tight turn. So then we get out onto the Don Valley Parkway, and he's going to show off the Autopilot.
Oh, yes.
Which I was waiting. I was really looking forward to it.
Moment of truth.
Absolutely. So get onto the Don Valley Parkway, and he's like, all right, merge over. And once we get up to speed with traffic and everything, he's like, all right, so see that lever there? Pull it towards you twice, and then take your hands off of everything. Take your feet off of the pedals.
On the DVP.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're zipping along probably about 90 kilometers an hour on the Don Valley Parkway. And the car is steering itself.
You get any? Does the car start to veer towards the bridge a little bit, like the rails on the DVP?
Does not.
That'd freak me out.
It stayed right in the middle of the lanes, the lane I was in, and then he's like, "Okay, turn on your right turn signal, but don't touch the steering wheel or anything." So I do that. The car automatically moves over into the next lane.
Really?
It will change lanes if you indicate it with a signal. And part of the DVP, there was a fairly sharp turn. I can't remember now because I was still just kind of in awe of the whole experience.
Of course.
It was nerve-wracking though. Like I've got no foot on the brake or the gas, and the whole experience, I'm like, my hands are down here at like my side, but my muscles are tensed and ready to spring into action and grab the steering wheel if I need to, but I didn't.
It's got to be a little while that you haven't done that sort of thing. Like, it's not like we just kind of drive for 20 years and all of a sudden, hey, look at me. Not like with your bike, look, ma, no hands sort of thing. It's usually when you're doing 90K or 55 miles an hour, you're going to want to hold on to the wheel, but you just let go. Do you put your hands up in the air? Do you have to hold them down? Do you sit on them?
Yeah, well, like I said, I was still nervous. So I had my hands just kind of like here at my chest, and my muscles were tensed, ready to grab the wheel in case it decided to like wrench itself off towards the guardrail or towards oncoming traffic or something. Right. But there was a fairly sharp curve that we went on, and I don't remember now whether it was actually part of the DVP or when we were on the off-ramp. I don't remember which. I think it was part of the DVP. This was where I was really nervous because it's a fairly sharp curve, and it still stayed right in the middle of the lane the entire way around the curve. No issues whatsoever.
Is there a time limit for Autopilot? It can only go a certain long. Well, obviously, the battery's going to run at some point, clearly.
Yeah, you're limited by the battery.
But is there some sort of memory, or is there too much CPU processing that it can't handle and has to shut off, or does it all take care of that?
Check back in with you and say, hey, listen, could you reactivate it?
It won't turn itself off necessarily. What it will do is periodically it will tell you to put your hands on the wheel.
Okay.
And then if you don't put your hands on the wheel, if you do put your hands on the wheel, then it's happy and away it goes.
Sure.
It keeps going. You just need to touch the wheel for a second and then you're good. To actually regain control of the car, you need to do more than just touch the wheel. You need to like physically like steer it like as if you're changing a lane or something like that. And that will snap the autopilot off and you'll be back under manual control.
So it's automatic, no extra buttons.
Right. No extra buttons to deactivate.
It's nice.
Same as tapping the brake. That turns off the autopilot. Same as cruise control on every car made since forever. If you don't put your hands on the wheel when it asks you to, it will remind you again. And when it reminds you, it mutes the radio. And there's a vocal warning. So you can't say, oh, my music was too loud, I couldn't hear it. It mutes all audio and everything like that, except for the warning. It will start to slow down the car. And then eventually it just basically turns itself off once the car's got down to like 20 kilometers an hour or whatever. And then, unless you touch the steering wheel, then it's happy and away it goes. So yeah, that was the autopilot was really, really interesting and a lot of fun. It is not designed to work on every type of road.
Oh.
The ideal road for it is a divided highway.
Okay.
Where a multi-lane divided highway where the lane markings are clear, because it uses cameras to sense the lane markings and the cars behind and ahead and beside.
So if you go into farm country with concession roads, it would hate that because there's usually no yellow line in the middle.
Yeah, and then what happens is that the autopilot will get confused and it will crash into a guardrail and then into a tree.
Oh, good.
And then the person will blame autopilot when he's an idiot and shouldn't have been using autopilot in that condition anyways.
Right.
And so, yeah, it was really interesting. So we get off the DVP, and then pretty much at this point, there's not much else he can show me in the car. He showed me one neat thing in the car itself. With every Model S in Canada, you get a subscription to Slacker Radio. Right on the touchscreen in the car, if you want to listen to Pink Floyd, you type in Pink Floyd, and it will play Pink Floyd songs for you.
Awesome.
If you want to listen to an exact song, type in the title of the song, it will stream the song for you.
Kind of internet connection with that use a lot of data. Same as
Tesla Model S's come with LTE, an LTE internet connection in the car, and it's included in the cost of the car.
Awesome.
So you don't have to pay anything extra for it.
And that's for the life of the car?
Well, he guaranteed that Elon Musk guaranteed that we would have wireless internet in the cars for free for at least 4 years.
That's not bad.
So he's guaranteed through to the end of 2018.
Reasonable.
Yeah. Now, who knows what will happen beyond then? I don't expect that wide access internet will be free in the Model 3s. I think that will be a premium, which is understandable.
For the X or the S, maybe.
Yeah, for the X or the S, I'm sure it will probably be included for 4 years or something like that, and then you might need to pay to re-up.
That's still decent.
The Model 3, I would expect that it will have internet in it for pushing through updates to the car.
Okay.
Because, it does. They routinely update the software for the car.
Makes sense.
Over the air. You'll come out in the morning and you've got a brand new update in your car.
Well, yeah, you want to stay safe and learn maps or new ways to do things, obviously.
And even beyond that, they will push through updates that actually increase the mileage.
Oh.
Just through a software update, the original Tesla, the Roadster, the little two-seater jobby that he started with, just through software updates, they have increased the range of that something like 100 miles or something. I don't have the exact numbers, but
just from the battery life.
Yeah.
From updates.
Just from software updates. Just
cool.
Efficiency algorithms and various other coding magic.
That's almost like Android or iOS, I guess, always looking for ways to save their battery.
Yeah.
Same idea, I guess.
Absolutely. So the last real thing that he had to show me during the test drive was the handling of the car. Because the car is built on this skateboard type platform where the batteries cover the entire bottom of the platform of the car, it's got a very low center of gravity. And because of that, it sticks to the road. I've never driven a Porsche, but Porsche are renowned for their handling characteristics.
Of course.
Sure, yeah.
They stick to the road and they don't go anywhere.
Does it have a wide wheelbase on it?
I'm not sure of the exact wheelbase. It's about average for a car of that size. Like when you're looking at you'd be comparing it really to maybe a 5 or a 7 BMW S500 from Mercedes. Might be a little bit bigger, but maybe an E-Series or something like that as far as wheelbase is concerned. But there was this windy road that he took us on, and he's like, open it up a little bit. And I got it up to like about 40 or 45, 50 kilometers an hour on this road. It's unfamiliar. I didn't want to like go balls to the wall on it and go whipping through these corners because I've never driven the car before and I don't know what the road is like. But even just going like the 45, 50 kilometers an hour, there was almost no yaw in the car at all.
Nothing.
It just stayed level through the corners.
Just flat. There's no like lean into the tires?
Slight, but very little.
Huh.
Because of the low center of gravity. And yeah, so then we get back to the dealership and go inside, and he's like, how'd you like it? And I was like, oh man, I love it. If I could afford one, I'd have one right now. I'd be putting in my order. As it was, I did put down my reservation. So at some point in 2019, hopefully 2018, but likely 2019, I'll be taking delivery of a shiny new Tesla Model 3.
I wonder if that's what they're doing in the Tesla dealership. They give you an S or an X and say, what do you think? Want to upgrade? I don't know. Or they're just, that's all they have to test drive?
Well, they only have two models right now. They've got the S and the S.
Right.
X, it's not like they have a lot. The Model Y is coming eventually. That's the next model.
What's that one?
That is going to be a mini version of the X.
Okay.
So it's going to be a lower cost SUV type vehicle. Now, for those of you paying attention to the model names, the 3 was not originally intended to be the 3. It was meant to be the Model E. However, Ford didn't like that, since they have a trademark on the phrase Model E.
Oh, yeah, way back when.
Yes. So they had to change it to the Model 3. So yes, the model numbers for Tesla are S, E, which is now a 3,
Yeah.
X, and the next one is Y.
Maybe a Z somewhere down the line?
Who knows?
Or it could be a double A.
Beyond the Y, their next one is going to be a pickup of some kind.
No kidding.
Yes.
Electric only pickup.
Yep. And beyond that, Elon Musk just announced earlier this week his master plan part 2, where he talked that they're actually starting development on a semi 18-wheeler electric semi that will eventually have full autonomy.
Retailers have done YouTube videos of Autopilot with big rigs. So maybe that's what his aim is, just to kind of get into that whole autonomous area of electric.
It absolutely is.
18-wheelers. That'd be wild.
He has this vision for the future of the company, the future of driving, where if you have a Tesla, most of the time your car sits in the driveway, not used. It's either sitting in your driveway at home or it's sitting in the parking lot at work. Once full autonomy hits, you're going to be able to take your car to work and then release your car into the Tesla fleet. Essentially car sharing, except it's not really car sharing. It's more like driverless Uber. Think Total Recall. The
all right.
Minus the smart-ass robotic driver. It will go pick up people, take them to their destination, and you will receive the payment for it. So potentially you could offset the entire cost of your loan or lease.
And you don't have to, no small talk, no candies in the back seat, no worries.
Nope. And yeah, so the car itself is fantastic.
Seems far-fetched, really.
No, that's a great idea. I don't have to talk to people and they pay me. Perfect.
It's coming.
What do they say for Tesla would be the 18-wheeler? Is that way down the road, or does Elon kind of tease a bit to say, here's my ETA or rough plan?
He didn't really give any ETA in his master plan. But when you look at, it was 10 years ago, almost to the day right at this point, that they released, that they became a company, I think, essentially. And since then, they've released the Roadster, the S, the X. The 3 is pencils down at this point. They're done design or almost done design for the 3, so it's going to go into production next year. And now they're working on merging the two companies, Solar City and Tesla Motors, into one big Tesla company. And then you're going to see an even bigger push with the solar wall, with the Tesla wall.
Or even, I guess, in the cars, they could have even longer range if they make it pretty. The solar panels pretty on the tops of the cars, or however they may design that.
Efficiency right now for solar panels, it would increase your range, but honestly, it would be negligible.
That's too much cost for
the efficiency. Well, with the efficiency of the photo panels, the PVP panels right now, they're just not efficient enough.
Something else would have to come before we get there, you think?
A giant leap in PVP technology. right now we're only at about like a 20-25% efficiency in the solar panel.
Yeah, the solar doesn't seem to be, at least on a commercial scale, it doesn't seem to be the big push. So
we're getting there.
It's
slow. Improving.
Yeah. I guess other vehicles, as far as the Tesla 3, I know you kind of jumped on it a bit, but is this kind of more of an entry family sedan compared to the S and the X?
Absolutely. It's a lot smaller. It's more the size of like a Toyota Camry or a Mazda 6. Doesn't have the length or the width of the S. And so, yeah, it's a lot smaller. But if you're a family of 4, it's really big enough.
Good enough. Few suitcases.
Yeah.
Starting to come out with more charging stations too? Or did Elon mention how many charging stations Tesla wanted to have? Or is it kind of more of a grand scale off the top of your mind?
Yeah, on the website, you can look at the network and it talks about how many there are and how many there's going to be by the end of 2016 and how many there's going to be by the end of 2017. It's well into the thousands at this point.
Just from Tesla, or is that?
Just from Tesla.
Okay.
That's the supercharger stations.
Huh.
And of course, here, the Ontario government just announced a huge plan to build 250 or something like that charging stations across Ontario.
Probably at their different public stations or rest stops, maybe?
No, actually, they've seemed to have done a big partnership, a fairly decent partnership with McDonald's and Tim Hortons.
Really?
A lot of the locations are McDonald's and Tim Hortons restaurants, as well as here in London, there's going to be one at City Centre downtown.
Okay.
There's going to be one at that quasi-abandoned strip mall at down by the 401.
Of course.
And then there's going to be another one where I don't remember, I forget. But there's going to be 3 that the government's putting in. Now, they may not necessarily be free. They're going to be designed so that they will accept payment by credit card right at the charger.
Okay.
However, the partner location may choose to offer it for free and absorb the cost themselves.
That makes sense. If you're trying to still be McDonald's or Tim Hortons, and in whatever world we turn into, if people change their eating habits, then maybe you're going to sway somebody to go to a particular restaurant or location, absorb the cost, just like they do for Wi-Fi or whatever
clever,
else.
Really.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has to make money, and why not have a business partnership?
Absolutely. And even as electric vehicles grow in the percentage, it's going to be a long time before the majority of the vehicles on the road are electric. So for every 500,000 customers that one of these Tim Hortons or McDonald's serve, they may need to spend $7 to charge some guy's car.
It'll be a while until it becomes that popular.
Yeah,
At first, it'll be a couple trickle, or a couple dollars worth of trickling electricity.
Yeah.
And then it'll just kind of grow from there, and I'm sure the costs will absorb somehow.
Well, especially when the government's picking up the tab for doing the actual installation work.
Right, so next to them.
The expensive part.
Otherwise, it's no cost, no big deal. Just maintaining it, I guess.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you have any dislikes about the test drive?
The test drive itself, no. There were no dislikes. The car was fantastic. The lines inside the car, just visually.
Right.
The lines inside the car were so clean, so smooth. Everything was well thought out. A lot of, if you read online some of the forums where people talk, where owners of Teslas talk, a lot of them complain about the user interface on the touchscreen. I only got to work with it a little bit, so I don't have anything negative to say about it. And apparently they're doing an update on that anyways.
Gotcha. Was it just any particular complaints? Was it you couldn't touch it properly, or wasn't visually stimulating? Or
one, they're saying that it's ugly. There's a lot of ugly complaints about it.
yeah.
And the other is that it's slow. And I believe that the touchscreen is based on a Tegra 2 processor or something. And there's talk of upgrading that the 3 is going to have a faster touchscreen. And once they bring that out, once they refresh the Model S and everything, it's going to get a faster processor as well.
Well, we talk about the way it drives and everything, but what about the seating? What's that like?
So comfy. It was a fully appointed leather seat.
Okay.
So it was super comfy. Lots of leg room, power, everything for adjusting your seat. Didn't sit in the back seat at all, except like in the test in the showroom. And that was comfortable as well. Seats 5. And you can get an option for the Model S where you actually have 2 rear-facing jump seats in the trunk.
What?
Yeah, so you can actually have a 7-seat Tesla Model S for
like
kids.
A rumble seat.
Essentially, yeah.
Just like the station wagons.
Yeah,
way back.
the old station wagons that used to have the back facing one, and it's good for kids.
Sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, they could sit and face back and
Great.
give the people behind you the finger as you're
If they'll still
as
have,
they're tailgating you.
if you still have drive-ins by the time
Hey
Tesla
Jimmy,
comes
give that
around.
guy a finger. Give that guy the finger. He's following too close.
Hey, look, a deer.
So yeah, it's phenomenal. Like they've put a lot of thought into the vehicles, and they're fun to drive. And I would love to own one right now.
Even the rear-
Elon, if you're listening, send me one.
no
please.
pressure. Just
No pressure.
four
Just-
would be lovely.
I'd be happy, even with the P60. Doesn't even need to be the D. I know anything. I'll take it.
Any particular features that stand out for you? I know you said you love it. You're in awe. Awesome. But is it something like a rear view camera is a nice touch, or just little things, or is it a big thing that kind of stands out for you with Tesla?
The Autopilot is by far
Yeah.
the biggest feature.
Obvious.
It's by far the biggest feature. How much use will I get out of it? Who knows? We'll see.
There's got to be times where you're doing work commutes or something like that. I know you might not use your own vehicle, but at that time it'd be nice to kind of
For sure.
keep your hands off the wheel and kind of adjust and just sit back for a minute.
For sure. I have to decide. I think I'm going to get the Autopilot feature.
You have to now that you tried it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have to. I could drive it quite happily without the Autopilot. And the nice thing is, the equipment, all the hardware is there regardless.
Okay.
So if I buy it right off the bat and choose not to spend the extra however many thousands of dollars to have the Autopilot, I can do it later and they can activate it by software upgrade.
Really?
They can just send down a command, just
Right
the
from
same
the
as you.
factory.
Just like your satellite system, if you call to order HBO in 2 minutes, it comes
Okay.
down over the internet and
That's handy.
you're enabled.
Just like that.
Just like that.
So these Teslas would be, I assume they'd be talking to each other to be able to figure out where it is. Is that just GPS satellites that it uses when it's doing autopilot? Or is it just all cameras to figure out, okay, there's a car here, there's a car there?
It's a mix of cameras, radar, and GPS
Okay.
is what it's using for the Autopilot currently. There are other pieces of hardware that can be used to further increase it, which may be necessary to get that next step up in autonomy. But there's also talk that they can emulate some of that hardware as well, just with the current equipment using software upgrades.
Might come closer then.
Yes.
What about night vision or anything? I know you, obviously it was noon or something like that you did the test drive, but did they mention anything like that where there's some sort of display on the windshield that you can see a little better at night?
To my knowledge, there's no heads-up display at all in the S or the X.
I'm kind of surprised.
Nobody knows what's happening with the 3 yet. We're still waiting for the second reveal. We've seen what the outside looks like, and we've seen a shot inside the 3 from stage and some driving videos and things like that. The one thing to note for the 3, there's a 15-inch touchscreen in the middle in landscape mode, and that's it. There's nothing in front of you. There's no
gauges, nothing.
There's no gauge cluster in front of you.
Wow.
What's there? Just flat?
It's kind of a little step, and nobody knows really exactly what's going to happen yet. We're going to have to wait and see.
Is that kind of weird? Or will people always be looking off to the side to figure out how fast they're going?
The speculation is that they may offer some type of heads-up display.
I know they wouldn't have to, but you'd almost want people to kind of get used to the car and not necessarily trying to shock them.
I was thinking about that as I was driving my car, and glancing down to look at my gauge cluster really wasn't any more distracting than taking a quick glance just off to the right of the steering wheel, which is basically where the touchscreen sits. If it's got the speed and everything on the left-hand side there, then you're really not moving your eyes too much more than you would in a normal vehicle.
I guess Toyota Echo, you might know more, Chris. Toyota Echo
Yeah,
had some
that's
sort of
true.
display that was offset, so it might be that kind of idea.
Yeah, the instrument cluster is actually more offset.
Center
in the
mounted,
center.
angled.
Yeah.
The Ion, the Saturn Ion had the same thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, the one benefit to that too is for international sales, they can just basically rotate the center console. They don't need to rework the entire dashboard.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully by the end of this year, we'll have more information, more detailed specs on what the Model 3 is going to hold for me.
I guess there's kind of no point in having standard vehicles anymore with these electric things.
Standards, yeah, there's no shifting. It's a constant variable speed.
I'd almost want something just to pretend.
Yeah, you really
Some people
wouldn't.
might miss that. I guess if it's so smooth and fluid and so easy to drive. And yeah, I guess if you're taking your hands off the wheel, why the hell would you want to shift?
Well, yeah. And the guys and the girls at the dealership, they are fantastic. They're friendly. And by the sounds of it, they have a lot of people coming in just test driving it. They have no intention of ever buying a Tesla, but they want to drive it and see what the hubbub's all about.
Sure.
And they're quite welcoming to that.
So free marketing.
If you're ever in Toronto, you could stop by the dealership and see if they've got a slot open, or give them a call a couple weeks in advance if you know you're going, and see if you can get a spot.
Must be good for them. If people are coming to them to test drive it, they don't have to do any advertising or spend marketing money. They just show you the car and here you go.
Like I mentioned, I think back in the first podcast where we talked about autonomy and EVs and everything like that, the Model 3 has over 400,000 reservations for it right now.
400. Yeah.
Over 400,000.
We were speculating maybe 250,000, but
yeah, it's
wow.
Over 400,000. And to this point, Tesla has not spent $1 on advertising the Model 3.
That's insane.
Not a single dollar.
Not bad. And then they have the partnerships with McDonald's and Tim Hortons. Well, I guess that's more the province.
That's the province, yes. Tesla does have certain partnerships with various organizations where they'll install superchargers. Can't think of any off the top of my head, but they will partner with certain things, like maybe they might partner with Shell or somewhere to install supercharger stations at select Shell gas stations, for example, or someplace like an A&W or something like that.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why not? Maybe a quick review, like a summary of your thoughts, Rob. The car you said was awesome.
Quiet, awesome, goes fast, turns quick, drives itself. Not much more you can say about that.
No, I guess not. Kind of said it all. Maybe you'll get a free car for the publicity. Who knows?
That would be nice. I'm not holding my breath.
No. Me too. But the Tesla, definitely a competitor in the EV space. And if the market follows Elon's lead, this will create a huge shift how we drive today. Thanks to Chris, Rob, Nathan, and then myself. I'm going to thank myself too. Why not? This episode was pretty awesome, I got to admit. Stop by letusgetnerdy.com for nerdy greatness. Crack open a cold one and raise it up in the air. Cheers to number 10. This is Nerdy by Nature on the Pod Bros Network. The next Nerdy by Nature episode is coming next Friday. We promise. I know, I get it. It's hard to wait a whole week for nerdy goodness, but this will help. We have a couple guests, including John, the Downriver Pod Brother, to get his geek on with us. We get to know each other a bit, and then it happened. The most polite argument about cell phones ever. Subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcast app so you don't miss this awesome episode or any episodes that we share with you. Nerdy by Nature is on the Pod Bros Network. Android versus iOS. We can't wait. See you then. Have a great weekend.